All right. Well, we are back. And thank you for joining us again on the Being Magnificent podcast. On today's episode, we are going to dive into the tales of a mommy planner. So we have a story coming to us from the tales of a mommy planner, because as I have mentioned, I am a mother. I am a single mother who also runs a business. And honestly, I built it this way in hopes that when I had my baby, I'd be able to kind of more or less do whatever I wanted. And it's so interesting to me, the experiences that I've had. So one of the first things that took place was realizing that if I told my clients I was even pregnant, that they would actually feel like I abandoned them. And it was quite an interesting experience, because pregnancy is supposed to be one of the things that is great. Everybody, that's like the next step in life, right? You get married, you have a baby. So as a wedding planner, you would think that people would be more supportive of, oh, wow, she's doing the next step. And that is not the case. I actually replied to a client while I was in labor and let her know, hey, sorry, I'm having a baby and can't get on our Zoom call today. My daughter came a week early, and she told me after the fact, like a few months later, mind you, her wedding wasn't for like 8 months, but she told me after the fact that she thought her wedding was canceled because I was having a baby and wasn't going to be able to focus on her wedding. And it was the exact reason why I never told her I was pregnant. But I find it very interesting, right? In a business that is the steps in life, they say graduate college, get married, have a kid, buy a house, blah, blah, blah. And yet people aren't celebrating that when it is that way. I find some more things interesting about being a mother, that people give really interesting unsolicited advice. Just the other day, now my daughter is 1, but just the other day, I posted a picture of us at the pool. We were having a business meeting at the pool because I think that's, fun. I keep my daughter around me because I feel like what she's learning from being in my presence and being around people that I interact with is even better than what she may learn from Miss Rachel, Miss Tanya, whatever it may be. Nothing against those shows, nothing against parents that watch those shows. They do teach kids how to speak. They teach them facial expressions. They teach them all that. For me, though, I would much rather her have this world experience. And because I'm going to have her later on in life around people, because it's the nature of what we do, that it was important to get her started now so she didn't feel uncomfortable when we are in crowds. But I posted this picture of us at the pool, and somebody gave me some very unasked for advice about her needing sunscreen, as if I didn't have any on her needing a hat, her needing sunglasses. They didn't realize she had sunglasses, but she had thrown them. So I told the person she actually had glasses, but she tossed them. And she said, oh my gosh, you must teach her not to throw things. When you get angry, do you throw things? What she sees is what she'll learn. Pause, woman who doesn't really know me, but the power of social media, everybody knows you, right? But what was interesting about that is I told her, I said, she's playing the pickup game. And if you've ever had kids, they throw it, they want you to pick it up. They throw it again, they want you to pick it up again. This can go on for hours for a baby. And every time you give it back to them, they go, they love me, right? It's so cute. But that's what she did. And I wasn't in a position to pick it back up, like plain and simple. So I thought it was very interesting, though, that she just assumed my daughter's throwing a tantrum, which in all of her 1 year of life, she's never really thrown a tantrum. She's had frustrating moments where she can't express herself. It's definitely not a tantrum. So that takes me into conversation about parenting, and in what they see is what they do. I don't understand with parents when their kid is acting out, whether it be throwing a tantrum, or really I guess it's called throwing a tantrum, because they're yelling, they're screaming, they're crying. And these are at any level, kids are expressing themselves because they need something, period. And what is that thing that they need? Who knows? Because they can't talk. So we have to do our best as parents to try to navigate why they're screaming or hollering or whatever. But we all know that there's a point when a kid will test what they can get away with. And that behavior, if not guided, generally leads to them being kind of spoiled, having, a terrible personality. I mean, we all probably have a friend that we can say, we knew they were going to turn out to be a jerk because of how they were as a kid. But when I think about it, your kid's yelling and screaming and throwing a tantrum. And I know this from my experience, that you'll grab your kid and shake them and say things to them. And all you're doing is perpetuating even further behavior. One of my girlfriends, bless her heart, the other day said she was upset at herself because she said she taught her daughter to be afraid. And when I asked her what she meant by that, she said she'd been yelling at the other sibling and, raising her voice around the house and things like that. And of course, the other sibling is old enough that that is what you do with that type of child. But her younger daughter witnessed it and now kind of flinched when she heard her mom scream, even though it was never directed at her as the baby. And so it's interesting, these things that we go through environmentally in our homes and in our interactions, even as co-parents, right? Your kids are watching everything. They're watching and they're listening. And it's so sad to see people that don't realize that. And it's they take in what they're watching, what they're hearing, what they're seeing. And again, whatever I say on this podcast is never to shame anybody who's doing it a certain way, because to each their own. I'm not here to say one way's right, one way's not. I'm here to simply express what I see in how characteristics get developed through children. If your child is sitting in front of a TV and constantly watching things with, bad language, with drug use, with lots of guns, lots of violence, the chances of that being a staple in their subconscious is much higher. They're seeing it at a young age where they think that that's how the interaction should be. Even in your household as parents, I'm a 2-time divorcee. I can say that. And the first marriage I was in, I had 4 bonus children. I left that marriage with 4 bonus grandbabies as well. And I will say that the kids we have over there, they never saw us argue. Not once. When I decided to leave, they were shocked because they had never really seen that, because we made a conscious decision to not argue in front of each other. And, it was behind closed doors. It was always respectful. It was an example to show them of how the love should be. And so you probably are wondering why I left. And basically I couldn't love him the way he wanted to be loved. So I wanted him to find somebody that could. But why do I bring that up? Those kids were so well-mannered. They saw peace in their house. They saw supportive parents that showed up at everything. Sometimes 3 parents showed up, and what that did for them later on, I think as they got into adulthood, set a foundation. Now, of course, parents and kids are always going to butt heads. There were eventually things that they didn't like, so they don't want to end up that way. We take all those things. But my second marriage was a little more tumultuous, if I can use that term correctly here, that had he have stayed in my life and in my daughter's life, she would have seen a lot of loud talking. She would have probably seen her mom squabbling with somebody. And squabbling, if you don't know, is punching, squabbling, we're going at it. And she would have seen the incorrect way to be loved from somebody. And so now as a single mom, I have the challenge of teaching her the correct way to be loved while also being very choosy about who that next person may be. And it's interesting that I would take that sacrifice and would rather do that than even have what I thought I wanted. And I think that that's our obligation to our children sometimes. And I think a lot of people can't do it, and you see, again, not to shame anybody, but you see a lot of children that are being raised that are just, they're there. Their parents don't have it. Their parents are focused on other things, whether it's, dating or whether it's going out or business, where, they don't have the time. A buddy of mine just posted something the other day and said, kids will look at love in the sense of time. And so when they're looking at love, it is how much time can you give them? And so LOVE is equal to the amount of time. And so some people think I'm doing all of this for my children, and at the end of the day, is that true? Do your children have everything that they need? And I'm not talking tangible, because the tangible things are actually easy for people to accomplish. It's the time and attention. Does your child actually get you focused, unbothered, unstressed, and one-on-one time with you? Or do they get, Miss Rachel on TV and they'll get to you when they get to you? it's kind of been an interesting thing. When people ask me, why do you, no, actually, this lady, the way she said it was what caught me off guard, to be honest. She said, do you like taking your daughter everywhere? And I said, as opposed to what? Leaving her at home with somebody else? And she said, well, I'm just saying, like, is it hard? Do you take her with you because you're afraid to leave her? No. I've been away from my daughter before. She's been away from me. We have a perfectly fine relationship. She's away from me right now as I record this. And yet the person was like, well, I just thought you were one of those moms that didn't trust somebody with your kid. Well, you're correct. I don't actually trust a lot of people with my kids. So check, yes. But that's not why I bring her. I bring her because I can. I bring her because I want to be here for the moments. I don't want to be somewhere and she learned to walk and I witnessed it on the phone. And again, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I'm simply stating how interesting it is that we look at a mom taking her child everywhere and having her with her as like the wrong thing to do. Like, you want to bring her everywhere. Don't you want your free time? Like, look, I'm 38 years old. I had 38 years of free time. I mean, sort of. I was married at 22, divorced, had some free time, married again, now divorced again. But my point is, I had adult time that I spent that was my time. And now this is our time. And yeah, every once in a while, do I want to go get a massage and I leave her with a family member, or, later on, am I going to maybe want to take a vacation when she's older and I'll take her with me? Sure, probably. But right now, like, I was preparing for this. And I can't imagine somebody who wasn't prepared to get pregnant, what their thoughts were. Everybody says kids are cheap. No, they're not. Like, no, sorry. I don't know. Whoever said that isn't actually a parent, I think. Like, sure, she's breastfed. So yeah, I don't have to buy a lot of food for her because, she eats what I eat. Now she actually eats. So I do buy more food. But it's like, diapers aren't cheap. Baby wipes aren't cheap. None of the stuff a kid needs is cheap. Even a pump to get her the milk so that you can leave the house and, have milk available and not pull your breast out. That stuff isn't cheap. They don't make this industry like they're trying to help people. So it's interesting, the perception. And I don't know whether that comes from people that have kids, don't have kids. Not really sure, but I feel like this is a topic that I could sit here and talk about for a long time and go on a lot of different directions with it. But every time something happens, I don't know why I am caught off guard. I am baffled by the things that people say. It leads me to think about how more or less like self-centered people are, in the fact that they really think that their information they're giving is something that I should care about. And here I am on a podcast giving you guys information and hoping you actually care about it. But just a topic of conversation, right? Being prepared and being present and being available, because we are raising the next generation. And now you look at older generations and how they took care of their parents, that generation gave back. And then there was, kind of a reciprocated way. And I feel like now we're in a space where grandparents don't have the same kind of time as my generation of grandparents had, because they were retiring earlier, that now grandparents have their own life. And so they always say millennial parents, us, are being left to raise our children by ourselves without that support, or bringing in somebody who's a third party. And then imagine that third party doesn't have the same values that you have, but your kid spent more time with them. And now your kid acts like that third party. And I guess that's my whole point of saying keeping my kid around me is not, I mean, what do I say? It's not because I want to, but I do want to. It's because I want to, because I want to be the one that influences what it is. And because I've built something that can. So anyway, interesting what people talk about. I wish we had a crystal ball that we could look into somebody's life and say, I know where this is headed if this stays on this path. Matter of fact, that actually takes me to, on our YouTube channel, if you're watching us online, check out the video that I interview a what was she? Hypnotherapy. Because in hypnotherapy, one of the things that I did is I actually went back, age regression hypnotherapy, and I talked to my younger self. And I talked to myself at 1 year old at my first birthday, which was the oldest memory that I can remember. And it was really because I had just seen a video of it, but it was still right there, fresh in my mind. I could see it right now, actually. And I talked to my younger self a few different times throughout the journey of life. And I said some advice and I healed my inner child in that. But imagine if we actually could do that. If we could look at our child, how we're raising them right now, fast forward to 20 years, and think about whether or not we would like that. If you can look at what you're doing and know whether or not it's the right thing, this is an opportunity to say, hey, maybe I should course correct. Maybe I'm not using all the resources I have available. Maybe I am letting screen time raise my child. Again, not shaming anybody, but if you could look at a picture of who your child is now at whatever age they are and imagine where they'll be at 21 or 30, do you like what that would become? And that's actually a weird question to ask a parent, because we all want to say, yeah, we love our kid. We love whatever they become. We love it. But I would venture to say that there's some people that probably look at their kid and go, maybe I need to do a little bit more work. Maybe I didn't do enough on the empathy side of my child, or maybe I didn't do enough on this, or maybe your kid has trouble, playing with others. My godson is a only kid, and he's having a hard time now sharing because he's 9 years old. It's normal for kids, but there's little behaviors that my parents have been able to pick up now and go, nope, if this continues, he's going to end up being a little jerk, right? I said jerk, they didn't. But, there's little things that they can see that are starting to be part of that foundation as he develops and the brain stops developing from the point of where it's at. Under 8, your children's foundation is developing. So now that he's 9, it's like, oh, no. We need to tweak that. That looks like a little bad piece that got in there that we don't want to continue. So not giving homework on a podcast, although I almost said it, but thanks for tuning in today. This is my topic of parenting. There'll be more to come on it. I do have some chats about, different kinds of diapers and things like that. But really the whole point of today's podcast was just, referring to the tales of a mommy planner. As I am out, I have my daughter, we are planning, we are doing things, we're moving and shaking, and the perception that people have about it, and how baffled I am that in now 2025, that we have a perception about an entrepreneur mother bringing her kid with them. Like, I don't know. I thought we could do anything. I thought we had gotten past, the things that women can do, or the, stay at home in the kitchen, or, fighting the patriarchy. Still feels like something we shouldn't have to be doing in 2025. But strange enough that these comments that I get actually come from women too. So that's another thing to think about, is like, where did we get this thought? What are we buying into? What are we reading? What are we signing up for and not signing up for? What are we backing and not backing? Which could go down an entire rabbit hole of conversation, but we'll keep it for another time. Until then, stay magnificent.